She didn't wait for me to answer the door. By the time I got to the window, she was already in his car, passenger door shut, seatbelt on, phone in her lap, not even looking back. It was a Thursday. The mail hadn't come yet. There was a chicken defrosting on the counter, and she was in his car like this had been on her calendar for weeks. I opened the front door and said the first thing that came to mind. Really, he didn't even flinch. Just stood there next to the car, hands folded in front of him like some budget security guard. I remember the exact shirt he wore, pale blue with a barely visible stain on the hem. I hate that I remember it. I hate that I noticed. I hate that I cared. She rolled down the window. I'll be back in the morning. Like that sentence meant anything. I walked down the steps, bare feet on cold concrete, and stopped in front of him. I'm not a fighter. Never been. My hands were shaking so hard. I tried to pass it off like I was cold. He looked at me the way people look at spilled milk. Mild irritation, but no real investment. I didn't know you'd be home, she said. I didn't even know how to respond to that. Like I was the one ruining her plans. Like I was supposed to be somewhere else, so this could happen cleaner. The car pulled away 5 minutes later. I stayed outside for 32. I counted. Inside, her perfume still hung in the hallway. That one I bought her last year. The citrusy one she said made her feel like a woman in a movie. Turns out, she'd just been waiting for her scene. The worst part? That wasn't the night she betrayed me. That was the night I realized she'd already been betraying me. Quietly. Casually. And I was too busy reheating soup and fixing door hinges to notice. This gets worse. So much worse. I have photos. Emails. A voicemail I've played at least 50 times. But I'll start slow. Tomorrow, I'll tell you about the receipt I found in her coat pocket. The one with the 2 names written on the back. Neither of them were mine. I didn't plan to go through her pockets. I want to be clear about that. I wasn't looking for evidence. I wasn't snooping. I was doing laundry. That's it. Her burgundy coat was balled up in the chair by the back door. The same one she wore when she left with him. I didn't touch it the night before. It just sat there like a wine-stained ghost daring me to look. I finally caved after she left for brunch with Hannah. Another lie. I'm now 80% sure. Maybe 90. I picked it up, gave it the usual shake, checked the pockets for tissues and receipts like I always do. That's when I felt it. Not paper. Not keys. A hard little rectangle tucked inside the lining. My fingers froze. It was a valet ticket. That wouldn't be strange except we don't valet. Ever. We live in a town where the fanciest restaurant has duct tape on one of the menus. You don't need valet here unless you're trying to look expensive. The ticket was for a place called the Garden House. A boutique hotel just outside the city. The kind of place people go for spa weekends, secret anniversaries, or affairs. I turned it over, and there it was, in her handwriting. 2 names. Mira and Callan. Not mine. Not hers. Not his. Unless he's been using an alias. My brain immediately tried to justify it. Maybe Mira is a friend. Maybe she booked the room for someone else. Maybe this was for a surprise party I wasn't invited to because I talked too much, like she always says when I ruin things. But none of it made sense. Why write those names down? Why hide it? I stared at the coat like it might start talking, like it owed me an explanation. And that's when something clicked. Not emotionally, physically. I heard a click from outside the kitchen window. Faint, like a door closing gently. I stepped back from the sink and looked through the blinds. Guess who was there? Him. Same guy. Different jacket. Standing by our backyard gate like he belonged there. Not knocking. Not sneaking. Just waiting. I didn't go out. I didn't even breathe loud. I just watched. And after maybe 30 seconds, he turned and walked away. Not toward the street. Toward the alley behind the neighbor's fence. He knew the layout. That's what got me. The way he moved. Like he knew exactly where to go. My heart was beating in my throat. I texted her, just something dumb like, everything okay? She replied with a photo of her eggs Benedict and a smiley face. No mention of a man behind our house. No, hey, I left my coat. Just brunch. Just smiles. I didn't reply. I folded the coat. I put the valet ticket in my desk drawer. And then, like an idiot, I opened Google Maps and typed in the Garden House. I clicked the reviews. I looked at photos. I went down a rabbit hole I can't climb out of. In one of the photos, just one, I swear I see her. Blurred. In the background. Laughing behind a fountain. Wearing that exact burgundy coat. But here's the thing that still haunts me. The man with her? He's not the one I saw at the gate. I spent most of that night staring at my computer screen with dry eyes and clenched teeth, clicking through every review photo I could find of the garden house. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for anymore. Maybe confirmation I'm not losing my mind. Maybe some glimmer of a rational explanation. But rationality went out the window the moment I saw her face behind that fountain. She was laughing. That kind of unbothered, tilted head laugh she used to do in our early years, like life had no weight. She looked younger. Not literally. Not in the wrinkle-free Instagram-filtered way, but lighter, like she'd left all her heaviness with me at the front door before disappearing into someone else's life. And the man with her? He was tall, yes, but broader than the one I saw at the curb. This guy had a full beard and long hair pulled back, like someone out of a damn perfume ad. Definitely not the clean-shaven guy who handed her lilies. So now I had two men. One she left with. One she laughed with. And then there was me, sitting at my kitchen table eating cereal at 11 p.m. like a child who overslept. I wanted to scream. I wanted to slam my fists into something and demand the universe explain what the hell was going on. Instead, I opened the junk drawer and pulled out the receipt again. Mira. Callan. No last names. No room number. Just two names scribbled like they were a code I hadn't been trained to crack. I started wondering if they were aliases. Not just placeholders for her and the man in the photo, but something bigger. What if those names weren't her and him, but two others? What if she was just involved in something? Something beyond me? My thoughts spiraled, and like a complete moron, I typed Mira plus Callan plus the garden house into a search engine. And that's when I found it. Not a guest list. Not a review. A blog post. From 2019. Titled, Weddings That Weren't Meant to Happen. I clicked. Half out of spite. Half from a sense of dread I couldn't shake. The post was about a couple named Mira and Callan who planned their wedding at the garden house, but canceled at the last minute. According to the writer, a self-absorbed local photographer, the couple vanished without a trace 2 days before the ceremony. No goodbye, no reschedule, just gone. The hotel refused to refund the deposit. The photographer never heard from them again. So what the hell were those names doing in my wife's coat pocket? I closed the tab. My hands were shaking again. I felt like a detective in one of those movies where you already know the main character isn't going to make it. And then, this still makes my stomach clench, I heard the front door unlock. It was 2:14 a.m. She didn't tiptoe in like she'd been out too late. She didn't look guilty or scared. She walked in barefoot, mascara smudged, hair in a bun. She looked tired. And then she saw me sitting there, the receipt in my hand. For a moment, I swear to you, she froze. Not in surprise, in calculation. Like a computer loading the correct facial expression. She walked over slowly, took off her coat, and said one word. Really? That was it. Really? No explanation. No apology. Like I was the one crossing the line. I tried to ask where she'd been, and she waved it off with a "don't do this now" tone like I was being dramatic. She went upstairs. I stayed up, still holding that piece of paper. I turned it over again. Folded it. Unfolded it. Stared at those names until they lost all meaning. And then I realized something I hadn't noticed before. Indented, not written, but pressed faintly into the paper from another sheet beneath it, was a number. A 10-digit phone number. Barely visible. I had to tilt the paper into the light just to make it out. I wrote it down. Tomorrow, I'll call it. Whatever answer I get, I know one thing for sure now. This isn't just a cheating story. This isn't just about love lost. This is a game. One I never signed up for. And she's already 10 moves ahead of me. It took me 4 hours to work up the nerve to call that number. I kept looking at the digits scribbled in my shaky handwriting, like they were dangerous, like dialing them might unleash something I wasn't ready to face. I sat on the edge of the guest bed, the one Mary Beth used to throw clean laundry on but hadn't touched in weeks, with the house completely silent, save for the refrigerator humming like it knew a secret. I finally called at 11:06 a.m. I had rehearsed what I'd say 100 times. Hi. I found this number. Who is this? Or do you know Mary Beth? But when the call connected, every word in my throat evaporated. A woman answered. She had a smooth, steady voice. Calm in that oddly detached way, like someone who works in funeral planning or reads legal disclaimers for a living. Hello, she said. Not a questioning hello, a waiting one. I cleared my throat. Hi, I found this number on a piece of paper. I was hoping to figure out who it belongs to. There was a pause. A long one. Then, what's the name written above it? Mira and Callan, I said. My voice cracked on the second name. I hate that. Another pause. She sighed. And then, as casually as someone asking if you wanted a receipt, she said, "You shouldn't have called this number." I sat up straighter. Excuse me. You weren't supposed to see it. That name. Either of them. This isn't something you can walk back from. I laughed, because that's what I do when I'm terrified. Are you serious? Who are you? What is this? She ignored the question. How did you get it? I paused too long. It was in my wife's coat pocket. Another silence. The kind that tastes metallic. You should talk to her, the woman said. If she's still there. And then she hung up. I didn't move for a full minute. I just stared at the blank call screen. My hands were numb, and I didn't know if it was from adrenaline or fear or both. I called the number again. This time it rang once, then redirected straight to a dead line. Not voicemail, dead. Mary Beth came home an hour later. She brought Thai food. Pad CEW, extra egg, no tofu, my favorite. Like it was a normal Wednesday. Like we hadn't crossed some invisible line into full-blown madness. She even kissed me on the cheek. That same sweet kiss she used to give me when we were just dating. It almost worked. I almost believed we were okay. Almost. But the second she went upstairs to change out of these awful jeans, I checked her phone. Don't ask me why. I know it's a violation. I know I'm not proud of it. But nothing about this feels like it plays by the rules anymore. Her messages were clean. Too clean. No recent texts from anyone but me, her mom, and a friend named Talia, who only ever sends memes. I checked her photos. All organized. No selfies. No hotel shots. Not even food. But then I opened her notes app. There was one note, untitled. Just a white square sitting there like bait. It said this. If he finds out, stall him. Play dumb. If he insists, tell him it's work-related. Don't engage past that. That was it. No context. No date. Nothing else in the app. I took a screenshot and emailed it to myself, just in case. I put everything back the way I found it. Then I flushed the toilet and washed my hands, pretending I'd just gone in to pee. At dinner, I asked her casually how work was going. She said she might be getting promoted. I told her that was great. I didn't ask for details. She didn't offer any. That night, I couldn't sleep. She was snoring beside me like a human lullaby, and I was lying there staring at the ceiling, trying to decide what, if he finds out, even meant. What was I not supposed to know? Was it the hotel? The names? The man with the lilies? The call. Then, at 2:47 a.m., the motion light in the backyard clicked on. I went to the window, heart pounding. I expected a raccoon, a cat, a branch swaying in the breeze. But no. It was a man in a gray hoodie standing at the edge of our backyard, staring at our house. Same posture, same silence, just staring. But this one wasn't the guy from before. This one was shorter, stockier. He didn't move for over a minute. Then he walked straight toward the back gate. And just before disappearing behind it, he looked directly at me. Not startled, not afraid, just acknowledgement. Like he knew I'd be watching. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I don't think I'll sleep for a while. I started locking the bedroom door at night. Not because I think she's going to hurt me. Not yet, anyway, but because I don't like the idea of her being able to watch me sleep without me knowing. I can't explain it any better than that. Something about the way she breathes lately, the silence in it. It's not human silence. It's practiced. Like someone mimicking peace. Like a lullaby sung by a wolf. That morning, after the backyard figure disappeared and the sun finally had the decency to rise, I went down to the basement. Not for any specific reason, just to get away from her. The silence between us over breakfast had been unbearable. She asked me if I slept well. I told her I dreamed of drowning. She laughed like it was a joke. The basement in our house is half finished. Carpet on one side, concrete on the other. We use it mostly for storage, old photo albums, dead holiday decorations, tools I never learned to use. I've always hated it down there. Something about the air, maybe. Or maybe just the fact that there's only one exit. I was pacing around, muttering to myself, when I noticed a file box I didn't recognize sitting behind a folded treadmill we haven't touched in years. The box was labeled with a single word in Sharpie, Sable. Not Mary Beth's handwriting. Not mine. Inside the box, manila folders. A dozen at least. No dust on them, which meant they hadn't been there long. I opened the first one and froze. It wasn't paperwork. It was photographs. Surveillance style. Grainy. Timed. Labeled. Some of the images were of people I didn't recognize, walking into diners, sitting in parked cars, entering buildings. But 3 photos, were unmistakably of me. One was me at the grocery store, picking up toothpaste. Another was me walking out of the hardware shop with a paint bucket under my arm. The last one was taken from our bedroom window. I was asleep, shirtless, on my side, my face slack with exhaustion. Someone had been in our room. I felt like my lungs flipped upside down. I sank to the cold floor and just sat there with the folder in my lap, afraid to keep looking, afraid to stop. I opened another folder. More photos, more people, all labeled with dates, times, and sometimes strange notes. Oblivious. Repeated entry. Suspects nothing. I checked the edges of every folder. Nothing else. No addresses. No names. Just that one word on the box, Sable. Then I noticed a USB stick taped to the underside of the lid. No label. No markings. I didn't plug it in. Not yet. I hid it in my sock drawer like a child hiding cigarettes. Maybe out of fear. Maybe out of instinct. I put the folders back exactly how I found them and placed the box in the same spot behind the treadmill. I didn't want her to know I found it. Not until I understood what it meant. I went back upstairs, hands still shaking, and sat on the couch in front of the blank TV for 20 minutes trying to convince myself I was still sane. Mary Beth came in eventually, holding her phone. She smiled like nothing was wrong, then said, "We've been invited to dinner at someone's house tonight. It's important." I asked, "Whose house?" She hesitated. "Friends from work. You haven't met them." I said no. She said, "We already committed." I said, "I don't care." She walked out of the room without a word and went to water the plants. That was it. No argument. No pushback. Just silence. Cold, strategic silence. At 6:15 p.m., she came downstairs wearing a black dress I'd never seen before. No tags. No receipt. Just perfectly pressed, as if it had always been waiting. I didn't go with her. She left without another word. And this part might sound insane, might make you question my reliability entirely, but I swear to you, I saw something in her eyes as she left. Not guilt, not anger, pity, as if she knew I'd already lost something I hadn't realized yet, as if I was being mourned. She didn't come home that night. She didn't text. She didn't call. But just after 2:30 a.m., the motion sensor in the basement activated. I got the notification on my phone. There was no one home. At least, no one I knew about. The thing about being watched is that once you realize it's happening, you start questioning every second you ever thought you were alone. That morning, after the basement motion sensor went off at 2:34 a.m., and I ran downstairs with a tire iron like a man defending a sinking ship, I didn't find anyone. Nothing moved. Nothing seemed touched. The box was still behind the treadmill, just like I left it. But the silence felt different. Like the room was holding its breath. I installed a cheap motion camera down there weeks ago. It was meant to catch raccoons that kept finding their way into the vent space near the water heater. I hadn't checked the footage in a while. It backs up to my laptop automatically, silent little digital memories piling up while I wasn't paying attention. I figured now was the time. I waited until Mary Beth left the house again. She said she was going to yoga. That used to mean something. Now I think it's just code for something that doesn't want me to follow. When the door clicked shut and her car pulled away, I went to my desk, pulled the laptop out, and opened the folder marked CM base. I scrolled to the timestamp. 2 hours, 34 minutes, and 16 seconds. At first, it was nothing. Just the dark grain of the room, the faint humming of the dehumidifier. But then, at 2 hours, 34 minutes, and 44 seconds, the figure stepped into view. Slowly, like it had always been there, but just decided to let itself be seen. My body stiffened so hard I felt my spine buzz. It wasn't Mary Beth, and it wasn't the man from the street, or the one from the hotel photos. This one was shorter, stocky build, hoodie up, gloves on. He didn't look at the camera, didn't even hesitate. He walked right up to the box marked Sable, pulled something out, a folder I hadn't opened, and then just stood still for almost a full minute. Then, with perfect precision, he slipped the folder back in, resealed the box, and stepped backward, disappearing into the shadows like he'd never been there. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he never touched anything else. I slammed the laptop shut like it was radioactive. My hands were trembling again, and I caught my reflection in the black screen. Pale, frantic, damp with fear. I didn't recognize myself. I looked like a man who'd already been buried and just hadn't figured it out yet. I paced the house for a solid hour after that. Checked every window, every lock. I even opened the attic crawl space and climbed up with a flashlight, expecting to find a sleeping bag or a pair of boots or something worse. But there was nothing. Just insulation and the smell of dead air. Around noon, I finally pulled myself together enough to plug in the USB drive, the one from the Sable box. I used an old Chromebook I hadn't connected to Wi-Fi in over a year, just in case. When it mounted, there were only 2 files. One was a video. The other was a document labeled roster_5. I opened the video first. It was grainy, older footage, timestamped from 2 months ago. It showed what looked like a classroom, but all the desks were empty except for 4 people. All of them wore identical gray jackets. One of them, I swear to you, was Marybeth. Her hair was pulled back tightly, her face tense and emotionless. They weren't talking, just writing, taking notes. At the front of the room, a man stood with his back to the camera. He was drawing something on a whiteboard. Not equations, not language, just a symbol. A black spiral made of concentric loops intersected with a vertical line. Over and over. Spiral, line, spiral, line. Then the screen went black. I couldn't breathe. I opened the second file, the document. It was encrypted, but the preview showed names. Dozens. Columns marked with numbers, abbreviations I didn't understand. Except next to some names, there were small red marks. Marybeth's name was there. No red mark. Mine was there too. I had a mark next to mine. I closed everything, yanked the USB, and buried it under loose bricks in the backyard like some character from a Cold War novel. I didn't know what else to do. I can't go to the police. What would I even say? Hi, I think my wife's in a spiral cult, and men keep breaking into my basement to rearrange folders. Yeah, that'll go over well. She came home around 2:45, said yoga was spiritually cleansing. She made tea, asked if I'd mind sleeping in separate rooms for a few days just to clear the air. I said yes, and I smiled, because now I know she's not just cheating. She's working, and I think I'm on her list. I told myself I wouldn't follow her. I rehearsed that decision like a mantra all day, pacing the hallways, whispering it like a prayer. You won't follow her. You'll let it go. You'll wait. You'll observe. I kept repeating it as she packed a small bag and told me she was heading to a late dinner with former coworkers, whatever that meant. She kissed me lightly, not lovingly, but formally, like a politician kissing a baby. Then she got in her car and drove off, not checking the mirror once. And 22 minutes later, I was in my own car, driving after her with both hands on the wheel and a stomach full of glass. She didn't go to a restaurant. Not even close. She drove north, out of the residential grid, past the strip malls, past the closed lumberyard and the decommissioned grain silos, until the road thinned into cracked asphalt and trees took over the skyline. It was dark. No streetlights. Only the moon and my headlights flickering off the dense canopy above. I kept a distance. My car is old but quiet. She never noticed me. She never even looked back. After almost 40 minutes, she turned down an unmarked gravel road. There was no sign, no gate, just a break in the trees like a secret being reluctantly revealed. I waited until her taillights disappeared, then followed. Slowly, my heart was drumming in my ears like a threat. That gravel path led to an orchard. At least, that's what it used to be. Dozens of crooked apple trees lined either side of the path, some dead, some overgrown, most split and rotting, their branches warped like reaching arms. Her car was parked at the end of the lane, engine still warm. She was already gone, the driver's door left slightly open like an invitation or a warning. I couldn't tell which. There was a narrow footpath leading into the trees. I took it. After maybe 5 minutes, I saw the lights. Dim orange bulbs hung between the trees like sagging stars. Beneath them stood a cluster of people, maybe a dozen or so, all dressed in similar muted colors, grays, greens, charcoal. Some had hoods. Others had blank expressions that didn't shift even when the cold wind kicked up the leaves. And in the middle of them all stood Marybeth. Her hair was unbound, her feet bare, and she was holding something in her hands. A mask, wooden, painted black, with 2 thin eye slits and a red line running down the center, identical to the spiral symbol from the whiteboard in the USB video. No one spoke. I ducked behind a tree, heart punching through my ribs. I don't know how long I stood there watching, breath clouding the air, mouth too dry to swallow. Mary Beth lifted the mask, held it to her face for a moment, then lowered it. A tall man stepped forward. Not the lily man, not the bearded one from the hotel photo, not the stocky basement intruder. This one was older, lean, with sharp shoulders and thin silver hair tied back. He placed both hands on her shoulders and said something I couldn't hear. Everyone else stepped back. She knelt. He took the mask from her and put it on himself. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a black book. Not thick. No title. He opened it and read something. A passage maybe, while the others closed their eyes. The only word I could make out, carried to me in a gust of wind, was designation. Then something happened that I still don't understand. The lights flickered, not like bulbs dying, but like they were reacting to something invisible. The temperature dropped hard and fast. I could feel it in my bones. And I swear to you, every tree in that orchard seemed to tilt slightly inward, like gravity had shifted. Like they were leaning closer. A low tone rang out from somewhere. It wasn't a bell. It wasn't mechanical. It was too pure, too deep. It vibrated in my chest like a tuning fork against the soul. Everyone, including Mary Beth, responded to it, not in panic, but with some rehearsed motion. They placed their palms flat against their chests. Then they bowed their heads. I didn't move. Couldn't. I felt nailed to the forest floor, eyes locked on my wife as she rose again, her face blank, her eyes open but gone. And then she looked straight at me. She couldn't have seen me. I was in full shadow. But her head turned directly to my tree, her gaze locked into mine like a spotlight. She didn't blink, didn't signal, just stared. And she smiled. Not a warm smile, not even a cruel one, just knowing. The masked man turned his head toward her, then toward me. And though his face was hidden, I felt something in my gut twist into knots. I turned and ran. Branches whipped against my arms, the ground pulled at my feet, but I didn't stop until I was back at my car, keys shaking in my hand. I sped down the gravel road without looking back, convinced if I checked the rearview mirror, I'd see her walking down the center of the path, barefoot and calm, still smiling. When I got home, her car was already in the driveway. She was inside, lights off, curled on the couch with a book open and her phone charging next to her. When I stepped through the door, she looked up and said, "You're home late." Just that. Like nothing happened. Like she hadn't just come back from something unspeakable. I asked where the dinner was. She said the Thai place on Oak. Said Hannah was there. Said I could call her if I didn't believe it. I nodded. But the leaves in her hair told me the truth. And the dirt on her heels confirmed it. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of fear this time. Not exactly. I lay on the guest bed, listening to her breathing through the wall, thinking about the orchard, the spiral, the file with my name on it. The masked man. The stare. The smile. It haunted me, yes. But not because I didn't understand it. Not anymore. I finally knew what this was. She wasn't cheating. Not in the way I first imagined. There were no flings, no secret hotels with candlelit betrayals. The men I'd seen weren't lovers. They were something else. And as wild as it sounds, I believe now they weren't here to take her from me. They were here to return her. Because last night, while I was lying awake, she came to the door. She knocked. Politely. Like a guest in her own home. And when I opened it, she didn't pretend. Didn't smile. She sat on the edge of the bed and placed the mask, the black wooden mask, on the blanket between us. "I don't want it anymore," she said softly. I didn't speak. Just looked at it. Then at her. "I thought I needed something else," she whispered. "Something outside of us. Something secret. But it was never about leaving you." I said the only honest thing I could. "Then what was it?" Her eyes welled up. It was control. It made me feel like I had power, when everything else felt numb. I waited. She reached for my hand. "It's over now, if you'll let it be." We sat in silence for a long time. Then I asked, "What happens to them? The ones in the orchard?" She shook her head. "Most of them don't go back." But I did. Because I remembered something. I tilted my head. I remembered your laugh. The way you always ruin the end of mystery movies because you guess the killer in the first 30 minutes. I remembered how you panic when you lose your keys, but always know where mine are. I remembered this house. Our routines. Our stupid little life that never felt small until I tried to live without it. She was crying now. Not big, messy sobs. Just quiet, steady tears. Like something was leaving her. Finally, I believed her. Not because I wanted to, but because something in her had changed. The coldness was gone. The rehearsed tone. The weight behind her words. It was as if someone had released their grip on her spine. We burned the mask together that morning in the fire pit behind the garage. She watched it turn to ash without blinking. No ritual. No words. Just a letting go. Then she came inside, made coffee, and sat beside me on the porch like nothing had ever happened. For the first time in weeks, she laughed at one of my dumb jokes. And this time it was real. Since then, we've been rebuilding. Quietly. Carefully. I've deleted the footage. Buried the folder again, but not out of fear, out of choice. I don't need to carry it anymore. Not if she doesn't. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night and look toward the woods, expecting to see someone standing there. But the lights never flicker. The trees stay still. She hasn't left again. She hasn't lied. And when she looks at me now, there's no mask in her eyes. Just her. This will be my final update. I won't pretend we're magically healed, or that I fully understand everything I saw. But I do know this. Whatever strange thing she wandered into, she found her way out. And somehow, in all of it, I didn't lose her. Not really. Not forever.